dripping with beauty like a waterfall.
That is how we do it right here on Entertainment Thursday. You're watching Good Morning Kenya. My name is Mark. This is a Future Voices segment, and let's talk about building prospects and also the aspects of cultural exchange. And for that conversation, I'm joined by Weldon Siele, who is the Vice President of Kenyans in Japan and also founder of KBC Africa. Welcome to Good Morning Kenya.
Good morning, Mike.
How are you doing?
Very well.
Yes. Cultural exchange, promoting human capital development. But in the within that context, it's all about building bridges, really. So how does that play out? How do you understand that aspect of building bridges through cultural exchanges, through education? Yes.
Great. I think one of the interesting things about Japan is culturally very far compared to our own culture here in Kenya. So what we've done so far with KBC Africa is we've started some of the programs, including student exchange. And this is, most of our programs actually are based on my own experience in Japan. So as one of the people who went to Japan some times back, I didn't have a lot of understanding about Japan. But then when I got there, they have, very interesting culture, very, very different from our own culture. And I thought that by, connecting the young people, especially the high school students, with the different high schools in Japan, they'll be able to exchange or rather learn from each other. And the effort is basically towards building global citizenship and for our own young people to be able to understand the different cultures and basically be more tolerant, I believe, and open opportunities for them in Japan. As I said, I think a lot of young people who are looking to study abroad today, Far East or Asian countries are not part of the part of the countries that people are looking into, and there are a lot of opportunities that are available there.
So through education, it's a way for people between, let's say, two countries to explore the opportunities that are there through education. How has that played out in the long run?
So our main goal at the end of the day is to be able to actually have physical exchanges, right? To have Japanese students being able to come over to Kenya, spend time here, as well as Kenyan students also being able to, travel to Japan and, spend time there. And hopefully in the future that also culminate into, opportunities in tourism and also opportunities in education sector. Yeah.
How do you see people-to-people relations between, let's say, whatever you're saying, people, students in Japan, students in Kenya? How do you see that enhancing relations between the two countries beyond the diplomatic aspect or from the government level?
So, through interactions, through the student exchange, collaboration between the different schools that we are we partnering with, students are able to also create friends, right? Friendship is always a way to, someone's culture, a way to also get interested in a specific country and, the education system and all that. And as I mentioned, I think looking into the world of education right now, there's so many opportunities out there, especially in some of these emerging countries that are not very, very well known, especially when it comes to study abroad. Yeah, so basically, we've seen a lot of students being quite interested in opportunities that are available in countries like Japan, for example. So in the long run, we're hoping that will, lead to students being, much more interested in taking on those opportunities. And also, I think at the end of the day, when people are able to make friends, they're able to learn much more about the opportunities available in the different, in their own countries. And we also hoping that through this kind of initiative, we'll see much more, collaboration even when it comes to startups and businesses. And I think one of the key aspects of our program is we are looking into students being able to co-create and innovate, solutions to challenges facing, our own communities.
Yes, indeed. Let's take a short break. But before we go, I want to interest you with a quote for today. This is by Agnes de Mille. To dance is to be out of yourself, larger, more beautiful, more powerful. To dance is to be out of yourself, larger, more beautiful, and more powerful. Stay with us. Welcome back. We are talking about building prospects and creating bridges in the diaspora. And Weldon Ciele is the founder of KBC Africa and also the vice president of Kenyans in Japan. And earlier on you mentioned something to do with working with high school within Kenya. So how many schools have you worked with so far?
We have around 7 schools that we've connected with Japanese students.
Yes.
Yes.
How has that exchange been?
Yeah, so far so good. So we've had 7 schools in Kenya and 7 schools in Japan. What we do basically is we try to match schools that are, the same category. If they're international schools, they're international schools. There are public schools, they're public schools. And they usually start from the very basics, right? You understand in Japan, mostly they use Japanese language. So there's an aspect of it, of kind of language exchange. They're also trying to learn English. So we start from the very basics to, being able to, discuss about the different programs that they're doing in schools and how they could potentially collaborate. We also have some universities that have been quite interested in what we do. And so far we have, one university that have been able to, work on some of the SDG projects with a high school here in Kenya and a high school in Japan. So, yeah, I think, as I said, the ultimate goal is to be able to have a platform through which Kenyan students and Japanese students are able to work together on, different projects and addressing social issues in their own communities. Yep.
Addressing social issues within their own communities. Now, this collaboration now between Kenya and between Kenyan students, Japanese students, even in, say, students going to other countries, how do we ensure that it's mutually beneficial, not only to wherever the students are going, but also to Kenya?
So I think for us, KBC is just a platform for schools to use, right? So we created that platform for the schools to use. So a lot of the programs, decisions on what they should do is actually driven by the schools themselves. So they're able to, work on what is important for the schools in Kenya, for example, according to the the new curriculum, as well as in Japan. So there are aspects that are common to both of them. So that's basically what they work on.
Did you have a question for our guest?
So when it comes to like the trade between, do you have to like learn, or because the between, does it go?
Which is a bit, I'm very sure some of you potentially have experienced that. Japan is one of the countries that when somebody speaks English in the streets, you automatically turn. It's very, very rare to hear actually somebody speak English. But the current generation of the young people, especially in Japan, are also trying to learn English. So yeah, definitely for any foreigner, and that is why we are also exposing our students to the language exchange. Part of the the cultural exchange is also the language exchange.
Yes.
We're exposing them to that language at that level, so that they can create a lot of interest in it, and hopefully, through that they can also learn the language. That will open a lot of opportunities for them in the future in the education sector, and definitely entrepreneurship. And the balance of trade right now between Kenya and Japan is definitely way favoring Japan in a very big way. And part of the efforts that I believe, there are so many events that are being organized by both Japan and Africa to promote much more that collaboration in terms of business. Yeah.
There's an expo going on in Japan, the World Expo. How has it helped in these efforts of using education now to bridge the cultural exchange and creating opportunities not only for students in Japan but also businesses?
Yeah, I think, basically it all starts with interest in a certain country, right? That's when people would start looking for opportunities. And so I think in terms of the expo that's going on in Japan right now, the Osaka Expo, I think it goes a long way because each and every country there represented showcase, what is available, mostly for the Japan markets. And I believe, I did participate in the expo myself, especially the Kenyan Week. And there was a lot of showcasing, the opportunities that are available in Kenya for Japanese businesses. Because I think the language barrier as well does impact the business in a very, very big way, right? Because I think if you go to the rural Japan, for example, a lot of the people know Kenya for sports, right? They don't know really Kenya for tourism, for example, and for the immense business opportunities that are available here. But through this expo, I think that is also breaking the big wall that has been in existence, because a lot of people don't really get that information, definitely because of the language. So through the student exchange as well, we're hoping that people, Japanese students would, because they want to make friends as well with Kenyan students, right? So we see, whenever we have these events, we see like students are really interested to even converse, right? So whenever we have the first session, they usually just smiling because they can't say anything in English and things like those. But in the second, subsequent sessions, we see them, being able to converse, basic conversations in English, which I guess would be really, in the long term, would be able to also promote much more collaborations when it comes to business. And tourism, definitely, yes.
Yes, and tourism.
Yeah.
But there's also the aspect of mentorship. In all these programs, the broader education sector, how do you think it can be integrated to the extent that it can attract international partners to ensure that even as we talk about creating these bridges, all parties are involved?
So our main KJA's mentorship program is actually aimed at local schools, like rural schools, right? I think, if you look at the schools in Kenya, for example, the different categories of schools, they also have different, levels of resources, for example. And one of the key things that we've, seen is that most of the rural schools don't really have access to, mentors, for example. And we utilize a lot. When we created KJA Africa in 2019, our main objective was to create a platform for the Kenyan diaspora or the African diaspora, specifically, mostly in Japan, to be able to give back home through mentoring young people and sharing, information and experiences that they've had, out there. So we have a lot of our mentors actually, most of them are Kenyans in Japan, who are living in Japan, professionals, some of them studying in Japan, who are able to have conversations with students. But of course, I think one of the biggest challenges that we faced as an organization is the schools that we are targeting are actually schools that are not necessarily well resourced in terms of basic facilities like being able to access an online meeting, right? Internet connection. Some of the schools are not even connected with electricity, and definitely just basic things like computers and things like those. So we'll be able to reach out to much more schools and the students in need, if we are able to potentially work with different organizations and partners that can come on board and, be able to support these kind of initiatives, yeah.
And looking at all this, you've studied in Japan.
Yes.
But then again, what do you think are the areas that could attract more skills for Kenyans there? What areas in terms of skills may need more Kenyans to look that way and go and explore?
Yeah, so I think there are different, Japan is very industrialized, and one of the key areas, and also it's facing, I think it's in a very unique situation right now as a country. One of the biggest challenges they face is, their population is aging, and it's, it's reducing definitely. So there's a lot of, there are a lot of opportunities for Kenyans to work, but as I said, the biggest barrier is the language. Because if you are in the service industry, for example, you definitely would have to serve Japanese people who don't necessarily speak English, right? So there are different organizations that are coming up and promoting much more mechanics being able to work in Japan and in the IT sector as well. I think there are definitely immense opportunities, over there. But I would advise, Kenyans who are interested in potentially working in Japan someday, the best way to go about it is to go through education, because that again gives you space to be able to learn the language and to learn the culture, right? But that doesn't mean that there are no opportunities for Kenyans who are definitely interested in just going directly to Japan. There's, as I mentioned, Japan is looking to expand outwards. So there are also students are learning English right now. So there are also definitely, opportunities for Kenyan teachers, especially language teachers, to to teach English over there.
To add on your point, so there's no limit to whatever you can whatever you can work for. So I know Japan, it's mostly technology and all that. Okay, know the language.
Language is key. Industries that are very hard to get into. One is because of regulations, right? The nurses that we talked about, I think Japan is one of the countries that are quite hard to go into. Even when you study medicine in Japan, it's very hard for you to practice in Japan. One is because of the high, regulations, and then obviously they also require very high language ability. Yeah, so there's some of the industries are very hard, but generally I think the IT industry is very, very wide open, and doesn't necessarily need a lot of language actually, language ability. Yeah.
Looking at the schools that you're working with in Japan, and we are looking at the level of cultural exchange. Are they willing to learn Swahili? Because this will learn this language, the other ones at the cultural level. Yeah.
It's really interesting. There's some of the Japanese people that you meet and they actually speak Swahili, right? So there's actually Swahili and Japanese, they are similar. There are some of the words that are very similar, right? Yes. And usually for them, they are also really interested. English is an international language, right? So a lot of them would be really interested in, studying Swahili as well. So part of the student exchange that we do, some of the students would, some of the schools would actually share Swahili words. Japanese side would be sharing, the Japanese words as well. And it's really, it's really interesting to see that kind of language exchange. And I'm very sure, when you walk around in Japan and people know that you are from Kenya, they will always, throw Swahili words here and there.
Yes. How do these exchanges enhance one's perspective, or perspective when it comes to the world at large?
I think, generally, being exposed, learning about other people's, culture. Let me share a very quick story. So when I went to Japan myself, I didn't know so much about Japan. It's just an opportunity that came about. So when I went there, I didn't do research just like many students who come, right? I didn't do a lot of research about Japan, and I found myself in the northern part of Japan, which is very cold. And then also, there's not so much diversity, over there in terms of international students. So, people will be quite curious, where you come from, things like those. They have never really interacted with people like, who are quite different from them, right? So I think, being in that environment for me really, made me be much more aware about the culture, the Japanese culture. And there are definitely different aspects that are also very similar to Kenya, like to our own culture here in Kenya. But, at the end of the day, I think also that, the students that, the cultural exchange with the students, they kind of expand their own mindset, right? Have the global view to some of the things, which I think also will go a long way to sort some of the issues that we're facing here, tribalism, for example, because students then are able to engage with a wider audience and learn from each other. And most importantly, students are able to actually, build their own self-confidence, and be much more, a global citizen, basically,
Looking at our own education system and now having an understanding of an education system like in Japan, what do you think needs to change within here so that we can say that even as we talk about cultural exchange, we have a system that really is conforming to world class, at the world class level?
I think the current changes in the education system is, a step in the right direction because, it's getting much more similar to, the Japanese system, which is much more practical, and then there's much more space for students to, exercise their own strengths through different, the different subjects that they do. So I think there's definitely a lot that we can, learn from each other and continue improving our own education system as well. So that there's, in terms of the transition as well from, for the, from high school to university in different countries, then that also makes it very, very easy. So let me just mention really quickly, I do work in an organization where we actually recruit students from Africa. We run a leadership program for African students. And usually when we recruit students from Sub-Saharan Africa, right? When we recruit students and we have a preparation year, right? You can easily see the differences in the level of education. They are all done, how many years? 12 years of, of school, because we only support undergraduate students. So in that 1 year of, preparation, you can easily see the differences in education, across the continent, which I think also, as a continent, heading towards, being more working together in education and all that. I think also there's a sense in which I think the African countries would also need to kind of work together and level up in terms of, the education system and the level of education in general. Yeah.
Now, how can the diaspora now serve as bridge? And I'm talking this at the continental level. How can the diaspora in Africans and the rest of the world when it comes to education, policy, and business?
I think the African diaspora plays a very, very important role, and that's where also the Kenyans in Japan Association comes in, because I think we are the ambassadors, right? We are the people who understand both cultures, both education systems, and we know, a lot of us went through the 844 system, that's the 844 system, and you can easily see, the differences and the gaps that exist. And, a lot of Kenyans in diaspora, a lot of Kenyans out there, not necessarily in Japan, but in other countries as well, I'm very sure are much more willing to, that transfer in terms of knowledge, in terms of technology, and, being able to contribute back home to, better the systems and just transfer the, the knowledge and the experience that they have, in the different sectors.
Yes. So finally, before I want to get to a quick fire questions for 5 minutes for you. Finally, what do you see as the future of this cultural exchange between the world using education as the springboard?
Sorry. I think we're looking at it as, as a way to build, to continue the global village, as people, as people say, by basically just developing, young people that are much more global, having a global perspective.
Yes.
And I believe, the world that we, the future that we're going into, people would really need to work together in different sectors, different aspects, to be able to, to have, exchange skills, exchange experiences, and, build a better future, right? So I think for us, we're looking at it as, just as a way, springboard to be able to make a better world. And that is why in Kenya we say inspiring the world.
Yes,
yeah,
indeed. Now, that's aside. What did you study in Japan?
Well, I studied economics.
Economics?
Yes.
What was the first thing you did when you landed in Japan?
As I said, I think it was first of all very amazing, right? The people are very kind. I think the first thing obviously was to figure out where I can have food that resembles our own, right? So I think, yeah, definitely. So that's definitely the first thing that we had to figure out.
Yes.
And then also I think figuring out about the transport system,
yes,
because it's completely different.
Yes.
How to take a train, for example, and things like those. So there were just basic things that we needed to really figure out to, kickstart our life in China.
Are you a fan of football?
Yes.
Which team do you support? Okay. Let's turn it down. In Kenya and
abroad.
Yes.
Well, of course I do support Harambee Stars,
yes,
and I'm very, I'll be following the competition that will be going on, right, starting this weekend.
Yeah.
Internationally, I'm a Chelsea fan. Yeah.
Are you a Chelsea fan?
Yes.
Where do you want to go?
Manchester United.
Manchester United. Shoot.
I have a question for you.
Yeah.
I know Japan has the best cars in the world. How easy is it to get a driving license out there? Because I want to go there and drive those cars because, man, I've been seeing those cars and I'm addicted. I'm addicted to those cars.
No, it's not very easy.
So very easy?
It's not easy.
Really? So you just have to stay here. Just drive the ones you have here.
Even if you're a driver in Kenya with 10 years experience, getting a driving license in Japan is very difficult.
Damn.
What?
Yeah,
why? You have a driving license here in Kenya, so why should it be had there and we drive on the same?
Yeah, the system is the same,
yes,
right? But they are much more critical, or rather much more, they are very, very keen.
Yes.
So even like for other countries, obviously, I think it's much more easy because they have like, collaboration with Japan. And for Kenya specifically, it's one of the countries I think that's very hard to get a driving license in Japan, even though you have a driving, because you have to be subjected to the, driving test. Yes. You have to be subjected to, some of the Kenyans will have to actually go to driving school, which is also very expensive.
So you just have to stick to driving here.
Yeah, but of course, people do get driving license. So if you come to Japan, I'm very sure you'll get with a lot of determination and hard work. You'll be able to get.
Okay, well done. Yeah. Thank you so much for making time to come on Good Morning Kenya and talk about the cultural exchange, using education as a springboard. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
That is Weldon Siele, who is the Vice President of Kenyans in Japan and also the founder of Kecha Africa, joining us here on Good Morning Kenya to talk about that. Don't go too far. I'll be back with yet another conversation with Professor Kithaka Wamberia. Stay with us.